The Hollywood Bowl is an iconic Los Angeles landmark. It's got quite the history and it's such a beautiful representation of Los Angeles and its past, especially since it played such an important role in the arts and it still continues to do so. So let's go back in time and talk about the bowl through the decades. The land for the Hollywood Bowl was chosen in 1919, the Theater Arts Alliance was just formed, and they were looking for a location for outdoor performances. So they sent out two of their members, William Reed and his son H. Ellis Reed, to find an ideal location. After a long search, they eventually came across a spot in Bolton Canyon. It doesn't look too exciting in these photos, but this was Daisy Dell. It was a shaded canyon and a popular picnic spot in Los Angeles, and the Reeds thought it was excellent for their new performance space. Not only was it close to downtown Hollywood, it was also a natural amphitheater in which the shape of the canyon helped trap sound waves, and the natural acoustics were excellent. And so the Theater Arts Alliance purchased 59 acres of land in Bolton Canyon in 1919 for $47,500. The following year, in 1920, the site of Daisy Dell began to be referred to as the Hollywood Bowl. Some people think the Hollywood Bowl gets its name from its stage, but it gets this name because of the natural bowl-shaped area which is surrounded by the Hollywood Hills. During this time, the site hosted concerts, graduations, and various community events. This is one of the first known performances at the bowl. This photograph was taken in 1920. There's a piano on a simple wooden stage in the bowl-shaped canyon, and I really appreciate that this moment was captured on camera. On Easter morning in 1921, the Hollywood Bowl hosted its first Los Angeles Philharmonic performance. It was the sunrise service which turned into a tradition that lasted several decades. The following year, in 1922, the Los Angeles Philharmonic began its first official season at the bowl, and this is the origin of the Hollywood Bowl and how it was created, which I think is really interesting. Now I want to focus on different sections of the bowl as we continue to go through the decades. Let's talk about the seats. In the early days of the Hollywood Bowl, the first concertgoers would lay out blankets on the grass or sit on temporary benches while bands and orchestras performed on the simple wooden stage. There was no elaborate stage during this time. In July of 1922, a performance of Bizet's Carmen was presented, and the proceeds were used to pay for the first seats at the Hollywood Bowl. And in 1923, the first 150 box seats were built. These were in front of the bench seating section, like they are today. Here are some photos of folks enjoying their time at the bowl in their box seats. Here's Walt Disney with his wife Lillian. Quite a few stuff happened in 1924. The land was deeded to the County of Los Angeles, the Hollywood Bowl Association was established, and the first backdrop for the stage was added. In 1926, Myron Hunt, who was a Pasadena architect and designer for the Rose Bowl, worked for the seating of the Hollywood Bowl. He created an elliptical form for the seating, and the seating area was described as being poised to fill with music and ascend. Here's a shot at night, and now we have the seats, and in this photograph you can see a new stage. So now let's talk about the shell. When you think of the stage at the Hollywood Bowl, we're all familiar with its shape, and this is referred to the shell of the bowl. And even the history of the shell is super interesting. There's been quite a few variations of the shell. In the early years of the bowl, the shells were designed to be temporary. They were designed to be nice backdrops and also help with the acoustics. But before the shells, the stage would often have sets and displays. Here are a few examples. These elaborate sets were temporary, and it's really interesting to see how the stage would be decorated during this time. Then we got the first shell, and it was designed by the Allied architects in 1926. But this shell caused acoustical problems, and so it was renovated at the end of the season. This sort of becomes a frequent issue throughout the years. Here are some close-up shots to showcase the details, like the scenery painted on the shell. Lloyd Wright, who was the son of the famous architect Frank Lloyd Wright, was commissioned to design sets for several productions at the Hollywood Bowl. He also designed a couple of the bowl's shells. His first shell was this pyramid-shaped one in 1927. This sparked a bit of dissatisfaction as it was seen as too modern. Lloyd Wright designed his second shell the following year. He was asked to fix the issue with the acoustics and the aesthetics. This shell was the first introduction of the arches we know today. It only lasted for one season since it was damaged by the winter weather the following year, but the shell stylization, design, and engineering was very successful. So construction began on the next shell. It was built by Allied architects in 1929, and it was designed to be permanent. And so the Hollywood Bowl had its signature shape and design. It was heavily inspired by Lloyd Wright's second shell. This shell had circular arches instead of elliptical arches. It was designed on rails, which allowed this massive piece to be moved with tractors, and it was instantly an architectural icon and became recognized worldwide. Here's a comparison of the two to see the difference and similarities of these shells. Now I want to take a detour and talk about one of my favorite sculptures in all of Los Angeles, and it's the Three Muses of the Hollywood Bowl. This is a modern fountain that was built in 1940 outside the entrance of the Hollywood Bowl. Streamline modern is an architectural style that focuses on long horizontal lines and curves. It's a type of Art Deco architecture, and you can see the style in some beautiful buildings in Los Angeles. A couple examples are the Pan Pacific Auditorium and Bullock's Pasadena. I made videos on both these architectural gems and they're posted on my channel. Here's a shot of the fountain at night, and I really love this view. Underneath the Hollywood Bowl, there's a tunnel you can access when there's a show at the bowl, and the stairs lead you right up to this beautiful fountain. It's an amazing way to greet you to the Hollywood Bowl, especially at night. Construction of this fountain was described by LA Times as one of America's most ambitious art projects. Above the fountain, you'll find the Three Muses, which embodied the spirit of Los Angeles during the Great Depression. Here's the Muse of Music, Muse of Drama, and Muse of Dance. It represented the city's optimism that music and art will last through these difficult times. While I was doing some research, I came across this photograph, and it's a miniature model of the fountain. It's amazing. I doubt it still exists, but if it does, this would be awesome to see. And here's a before and after shot to show you where the fountain was built. Also, I love signs, so I have to highlight the sign that just simply says Hollywood Bowl painted on wood. The sculpture was designed by George Stanley, and George Stanley viewed this sculpture not only as an entrance to the Hollywood Bowl, but also as an entrance to all of Hollywood. George Stanley also sculpted the Oscar statuette, parts of the Griffith Observatory Astronomers Monument, and this relief at Bullock's Wilshire, which is one of the most beautiful buildings in Los Angeles. I'm so glad this sculpture is still here, as it serves such an important reminder of the beauty and history of art in Los Angeles. And I like that it stayed the same all these years and it's still accessible. A lot of historic places are sort of unapproachable or just don't exist anymore, so I'm glad we can still enjoy this piece of Los Angeles history and walk up real close to it. Another incredible water feature at the Hollywood Bowl was the reflecting pool. It was installed in 1956 right in front of the stage. And here it is, it's so stunning. In 1959, some enhancements were done to the reflecting pool, a fountain was added, and a colorful water show would play during intermissions. The reflecting pool was drained in 1972. If you attend a show at the Hollywood Bowl today, you'll notice that the space that was once used for the reflecting pool is now named the Pool Circle as a nod to the past. Here's a shot at night. Instead of water, it's now filled with people. Once it reached the 1970s, the bowl's acoustics were needing to be improved, and so updates were made to the bowl and the shell for better sound. So here's sort of the last time we see the Hollywood Bowl like this. The installation of these cardboard concrete tubes completely obstructed the bowl's worldwide famous shell. Here's another shot at night, which really shows the visual disruption. So the pool was drained and tubes were added. Those tubes from the 1970s were replaced in 1980 with suspended hollow fiberglass spheres. And again, all of these installations were meant to help with the bowl's acoustics, especially as LA evolved, like when the freeway was added, which created more traffic noise, or when the Pacific Electric Railway on Highland Avenue was completed in 1926, which made the bowl more accessible and increased attendance. The latest update that was done in the 1980s lasted for about 20 years. And while we were in the 80s, the Hollywood Bowl Museum opened in 1984. Here are a couple photos of the groundbreaking ceremony. And it was located in the building that was originally the tea room. Also, this neon sign is pretty fun, so I gotta highlight it. Here's an inside shot of the tea room sometime around the 1940s, and some parties at the tea garden. But yes, in the 1980s, it became the Hollywood Bowl Museum. In 1995, a large renovation began at the bowl. This included updating all the technical and visual aspects of the bowl to enhance and unify the buildings and area, and certain areas were expanded, such as the main entrance plaza. This is when we got the updated Hollywood Bowl Museum, which was completely rebuilt. The shell that was created in 1929 pretty much stuck around until 2003 with updates and modifications through the decades. But in 2004, a newer version of the band shell debuted. It was based on the design we all know and love, but made larger for more accommodations. Also, the box seating areas were all redone in 2015 to resemble what they looked like in the 1930s. And today, the Hollywood Bowl is just as special as it was in the beginning. Its legacy continues to live on, and we're lucky enough to get to experience and be a part of this incredible place of Los Angeles history. The Hollywood Bowl is an iconic part of Los Angeles, and I wanted to showcase some graphics of the bowl that I really enjoy, like this TWA travel poster. I also love this vintage matchbook cover, and here are some old programs. You can actually view some vintage ephemera at the Hollywood Bowl Museum. And it's pretty amazing because they also have some miniature models on display of the different shells of the Hollywood Bowl. I also want to showcase this vintage advertisement. I collect vintage ephemera because I really enjoy the old graphics, photographs, and illustrations, and this is from one of the magazines I have where they're advertising this record player, and the Hollywood Bowl is so iconic that it was used to advertise this product. I just think it's a neat thing to point out. Hollywood High School has a mural inside the library from the 1930s, and there's the Hollywood Bowl. I also want to showcase the evolution of the signage and marquee at the Hollywood Bowl. The earlier signs had neon, which is always excellent. Here's a famous shot of the sign reading, "The Beatles in concert, sold out." And a shot at night with a close-up of the neon. Here's a photograph of the fountain, but if you look closely, you'll see two signs. One looks to be a hand-painted sign, and the other is a neon sign that reads Auto Park Full, which probably lit up at night when there was no parking available. And here's a billboard, and the marquee sometime in the 80s or 90s. And the signage today. I really do love this curved sign at the bowl. The clock is sweet, and I love that the letterboard is still changed by hand. And the backside is pretty cool too. It sort of wraps around one of the entrances to the tunnel. And of course, we all know the Hollywood sign. I love that you can see it from the bowl. The Hollywood sign recently turned 100 years old, and it originally said Hollywood Land, and it used to light up with thousands of light bulbs. And here are some more incredible photographs. The shell really is such a beautiful backdrop. Here's a shell getting a new coat of paint, and the stage decorated with flowers. Here are some ladies dressed up, passing out programs. And this is a really neat photo. It dates back to 1958, and it's a window display about the Hollywood Bowl. It was on display at Rathbones in North Hollywood, which was a department store, and there's a miniature model of the bowl. So let's zoom in and you can see the seating area. It's amazing. The Hollywood Bowl is really such a fun and important place, and I hope you learned something new from this video. The bowl has had quite a few facelifts. It's cool to take a visit back in time to see the evolution of such a famous place. Last year, I was invited by the Los Angeles Philharmonic to give a presentation about the history of the Hollywood Bowl at the Hollywood Bowl Museum as part of their Coda Plus experience, and it was super fun. I really enjoyed it, and I recommend checking out the museum if you're able to. Thanks so much for watching and subscribing. This was a fun topic to research. I'm also curious to know which shell is your favorite. If you'd like to grab yourself a souvenir inspired by Los Angeles history, you can check it out on my website at merchmotel.com. I collaborate with historic businesses and nonprofit organizations to create some merchandise inspired by vintage signage, architecture, and places. Some of my products can be found at the Academy Museum, Cantor's Deli, Bob Baker Marionette Theater, Museum of Neon Art, and other gift shops and places around town. Thanks for all your support, and enjoy your next show at the Hollywood Bowl. And check out some of the retro merchandise at merchmotel.com.